So we'll move on to energy trading. The term energy trading refers to a number of different practices, so we'll try to clarify some of them today. Some people use the term in relation to procurement, so negotiating prices and new contracts, but we actually want to focus on the trading of the actual energy. A simple example we've talked about before is capturing the heat coming off the compressors or pumps and using it to heat the factory, but it can get a lot more sophisticated than that.
Yes, Celeste, there are two sides. One's trading externally with people outside your organisation, and you can also trade internally within your organisation. The term is also used, as Celeste has said, to cover simply buying it more cheaply off the grid. And if you're a large user, you can do that. But let's look at a couple of examples of where you might actually be trading the energy itself. Maybe you need to use a bit of steam. You look over the fence and find your neighbour already has a large boiler, and in fact they can make a bit of steam which they're prepared to sell you. You need some compressed air. You find that your neighbour already has a compressor and it has a bit of excess capacity, and maybe you buy the compressed air from them. Maybe you're an office and you're on the ground floor in a multi-storey office, and the owner who sits on the top floor of the office plans to put in photovoltaics to generate solar energy. Maybe you can do a deal with them that they can put in a bit more capacity and you can buy it from them. So we can trade energy between these various users. This is quite common in Europe for space heating, less so in Australia, but it's still quite useful as a way of saving energy. Cogeneration is a term which is often used here. Cogeneration is where we get 2 or even 3 uses from the one lot of energy. So for example, we might have a process which produces waste heat. We may find that we can capture that waste heat and use it to heat the water that we provide to the amenities, the kitchen and the hand wash stations. And this means we don't need to install a separate water heater, nor do we need to provide the power for that separate water heater. Before we can do internal energy trading, we need to look at some of the limitations. And this is that energy only runs downhill. So it runs from a more hot process to a less hot process. Sometimes we need to do a bit of a quick calculation as to how much heat is available. So we take an example. Waste heat's available as hot air at 80 degrees C. We're able to cool this down to about 55 degrees C. And we're going to use that to heat up some water. So again, we need the specific heat capacity of air, which again we Google and we find comes out at 1, which is a nice simple number. So using the same formula as before, we find that we have 1 kilogram times 1 kilojoule per kilogram times 80 minus 55 degrees, 25 kilojoules of heat available for every kilogram of hot air at 80 degrees. If you want to heat water for the amenities, we might go from say 20 degrees to 50 degrees, and again putting the data into the same question, same formula, we find we have 1 times 4.21 times the temperature increase of 30 degrees, which is 126 kilojoules available. So we've got 126 kilojoules that we need. We get 25 kilojoules from every air, so we need 5 kilograms of hot air for every kilogram of water we want to heat. This lets us know whether the whole idea of transferring heat is worthwhile. If we do this, we might want to put in a heat exchanger so that we can transfer the heat from the hot gas to the cooler water. We might simply be able to put in some ductwork which will move the heat from one place to another, as in the example we talked about before, or maybe we need to do a little bit of plumbing.
So tell us a bit more about heat exchangers.
Yeah, we could of course simply bring the water into direct contact with the air, or we could simply, as in the previous example, pump the warm air out into the factory that we want to heat. But if the air was too hot or too dirty or contained hazardous materials, we want to capture the heat or in a liquid, then we need to use a heat exchanger. So it's simply a device which allows the heat to flow from one stream to another stream without bringing the two streams into contact. We probably need to do a few calculations here, so we work out what sort of heat exchanger and how big. That's beyond the scope of what we're doing today, but your heat exchanger provider should be able to help you with this.
Thanks, Kevin. One of the energy efficiency skill sets, the improve energy usage for a process or organisation, refers to energy trading plans and energy conservation plans. And this might be a new concept for some businesses. So could you explain the difference and give us some examples?
Sure. Energy trading is a subset of energy conservation. Energy conservation is all about using less energy, about improving our energy efficiency. And we've talked about one way of doing this through the capture and reuse of energy or through use of more efficient energy devices. Energy trading then is this idea of capturing and reusing the heat. And so this then is a subset of capturing waste heat or capturing excess cold and reusing it in another process. We might talk about energy plans. So an energy conservation plan is the plan as to how we intend to go about improving our energy. And in many ways it's no different to any other plan, except it's about energy. So it helps if we have smart objectives, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant and time-bound. It helps if we got a plan which talks about how we intend to implement our improvements, how we're going to prioritise them, how we're going to adjust our efforts for changing circumstances, and finally how we're going to measure and celebrate our achievements. There's an old project management saying, failing to plan is planning to fail. And we should think of that also in our energy improvement attempts. So our plan should include, what are we going to do? What are the benefits we're going to get out of it? How is it going to be done? What's the technical specs here? Over what timeline is it going to be done? When do we achieve the major stage post? Who's responsible for what? And finally, a resources budget, not just dollars. These things take more than dollars. They take time and effort as well, and that also needs to be budgeted in. Large companies will do this quite formally, but all size companies should do this. So, energy trading might focus on costs and allow large consumers to buy at cheaper price. But in most businesses, the benefits will be in better use of energy and less waste energy. And we do this by capturing and using waste energy or by using less energy in one place and having it available somewhere else.